Hi, everyone. Welcome to Food Freedom Live. And we're not live. Any of you that were on earlier or tried to get on earlier, we had some mishaps happening here and the power went out. So power goes out, Wi-Fi goes out, everything goes out. And I couldn't have it live. So I am recording later in the day. Finally, our power went back on. It's nice and cool. So I apologize for anybody who came on live and we weren't here because when the power goes out, everything stops. So I'm going to move into our PowerPoint. Hold on a second. Let me see my PowerPoint. Actually, no, wait a second. Let me do this. Let's get over to the PowerPoint and let's share it. There we go. Now we've got it. And I just want to, let's do this. There we go. It took a lot to get here today. It took a lot for me to get here. I think it took a lot for you to get here. And it's interesting. I was thinking about this, about how the power went out and it just stopped everything for the day in its tracks. And it made me think about tomorrow in Food Freedom Live, we're going to talk about emotions and how emotions get in the way sometimes with life and with food, and we're going to talk about it tomorrow. So definitely this will fit, all the emotions that came up for me today will fit in tomorrow, and I can talk more about that. But today we're doing Food Freedom Masterclass, and today is day one. There are 4 days, and the first day is diet mindset. The second is emotions. The third is mindfulness. And the fourth, we're doing Q&A. So we have a lot to talk about. I really have a lot of great and useful information for you. First, who in the heck am I? I am Kim McLaughlin. I have a Master's of Arts degree in clinical psychology. So I am a licensed psychotherapist in the state of California. I am a coach. I am a podcaster. I am also a best-selling author, a blogger, and lastly, but really not last, I am a lifetime dieter. I have been everywhere you've been, all the feelings, all the things I know. And we're going to talk about what that all means for me, but also more of what that means for you. So let's start with some facts. It is predicted that the global market for the weight loss industry will grow from 255 billion in 2021 to 377 billion by 2026. And why I tell you that is really important because I think we have to put everything in context about what that dieting industry does and really how it leads us astray. And what they don't do, which I'm going to do, is I'm going to talk about other ideas for you about how to really have food freedom in a different way than what we've discussed, what has been discussed in this world, actually up until now. There are relatively few of us that talk about a different way of looking at food, but beyond that dieting mindset. So that's what we're going to go over. We're told, so this is important. We are told by the weight loss industry that we are not okay at the size we are and that we need to lose weight to be healthy, quote unquote. And there's this imagery that people who are thin are happy and people who are overweight are sad and lonely. And we have been sold a bill of goods, literally. So your size doesn't indicate whether you're happy or not happy. It doesn't indicate whether you're healthy or not healthy. It's just your size. And we've been told that whatever size you think is big, whatever size you think is overweight, whatever size you think is fat is unhealthy. And that's just not so. And it's really time for us to step up and really think about food and think about our weight and think about our bodies differently. And I'm here to do that with you. So the dieting mindset, what is that? Because I think we have to start kind of thinking about when are we engaging with it. I got to say, even to this day, there are times where I get caught up in it because the dieting information is so prevalent. And what's what I find is that as I know more, I go, oh, that feels like a diet. So what is a diet mindset? Is that we think we need to be a certain size. Whatever size that is, generally it's not the size you are. So we have to be a certain size. And society teaches us that we cannot accept our bodies except if we are thin. Not too thin because then you're sick, but thin. And so there's this odd balance of what exactly that means. And are you too heavy or too thin? And we're told basically how I think of it is that we're told not to accept our bodies. No matter what it is, it's never going to be good enough, because that's exactly what I found, is that it's never good enough. And lastly, or one of the other things, there are many more than three, obviously, is there's a scale-driven mindset where we must have a certain number on the scale to think that we are good enough or desirable. I remember I used to have the scale, and literally, if it wasn't the right number, I would think badly about myself. I don't know that actually I ever got on the scale and said, this is it. This is good. This is enough. Because there always was a little bit more that I thought I should do to look differently, to have a different size body. So, what do we know about diets? And these are really important, because then you'll start being able to recognize, when is a diet in front of me? When am I being presented information about a diet? Or when is it really healthy eating in terms of what is my right food? What is my right health? So what do we know about diets? Is first, they focus on deprivation. You can't have this, you can't have that. You'll get fat if you have this. You have to eat this way. And it's about can'ts. And what I know 100% is, when we're told we can't do something, we want it all the more. And what I talk to people about is how to look at food as and embrace it, and that there are no good foods and bad foods. There's just food, and we don't focus on deprivation. The second thing we know about diets is they make us focus on food all the time. How much food, how many calories, how many macros, is it the right food? And you're supposed to focus on it morning, noon, and you're supposed to have everything all set out for morning, noon, and night. And I don't know about you, but for me, that made me a little crazy, because that's all I would think about. When was my next meal? When was my next meal? And that was either focusing on diets, when my next meal was, when I could have more, or it was focused on emotional eating. When could I have more? I want more. I want more. And really moving out of that focus on food throughout the whole day and night is, I think, what we're talking about when we're talking about food freedom. The other thing we know about diets is they lead us to see food as good and bad. Food is not just food. It's either good food or bad food. If it's good food, it is vegetables. If it's bad foods, it's salty, it's sweet, it's starchy, it's got oil in it. Bad food, bad food. And we all have, I think, our own definition of what bad food is. But if we say, oh, I can't have bad food, we all know what that means. And if we want good food is diet food. So good food is low calories. It's things that don't taste very good, but it's what we're supposed to have, because that's good food. And that's how diets are: deprivation, focused on food all the time, and to look at food as good and bad. What we know happens, I know this happens, and I'm sure once we talk about this, you'll see it too, is that we have this cycle that goes round and around. It starts up at the top, where we look at food from this diet restrict mentality. I can't, that's bad food. I can't have it. And what I know, and I'm sure what you all know, is that we can do that for a certain amount of time. We can say, no, 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 I don't want that. I don't want that. Or actually, I can't have it. It's not even, I don't want it. It's like, I can't. It's like kind of white knuckling. I can't. And then ultimately, what happens in an hour, a day, a week, a month, a year, 5 years, we have that binge where we feel out of control. Generally, that binge comes when our emotions are triggered. And that's what we're going to talk about in our second day of Food Freedom Live. We're going to talk about where the emotions really catch us and get us really feeling out of control. And so we have then that binge where we feel out of control, and one day leads to 2 days, leads to 3 days, because we can't stop. Because once we've restricted for so long, we're going to just let it all go. Whatever, if I'm going to eat it, I'm just going to eat the whole thing. And we keep doing it until we have something that happens where we start looking at it. We either gain weight, our tummy feels upset, somebody notices what we're doing, we recognize that we're overeating a lot. And then we have that guilt and shame. And that's that time where we feel bad about ourselves and we go, uh-oh, I feel horrible about myself. I feel horrible that I've gained weight. I feel horrible that I don't fit in the clothes. And we feel guilty. And what happens then is we end up restricting, because that's the only thing we know. The only thing we know is I'm going to restrict because I feel bad. I've binged, I gained weight, I feel guilty. Now all I can do is restrict. So that cycle going round and around, what we really want to do is really cut that off and stop that cycle. And that's when we move out of it and move into what I call food freedom. It first takes having that conversation with yourself about, how do we ditch the diet? How do we move out of that restrict, binge, shame, guilt cycle? And part of it is beginning to have these reflective questions. Is what asking yourself, what is dieting to me? What it means something different to everybody. And I think that it's something that you need to determine for yourself. One, dieting to me, so what it could be a constant focus on food scale and what I can't have. For me, one of the things dieting to me was having a scale, going on the scale multiple times a day. And that to me is dieting, where it really, I felt shame every time I got on the scale because it was never enough. And to me, ditching the diet, to me, one of the things is the scale needed to go. And so I got rid of it years ago, and I don't use it as a way of looking at myself, because it's not valuable to me and it makes my head a little crazy. So I don't do that anymore. And that's one of the ways I have ditched the diet. How else can you do that is asking yourself the question, am I focused on my weight? Right? That was me. I was always focused on my weight. What size am I? How big am I? Did I get bigger from that food? And one of the things we know is that bodies do go up and down for women throughout our cycle, throughout the month. It goes up and down as we get into perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. Like, your body has different fluctuations. And so are you focused solely on your weight is something to really start paying attention to. And how else you can ditch the diet is by doing what I teach is called intuitive eating, which is where we start looking at our body and what our body needs, and how can I eat intuitively? And this can be a scary thing for people, because we've really lost that inner compass of what is my right food, how much of it, what time of day, what's going to nourish my body, nourish my body. And we've lost sight of that. And it's almost like a reteaching of ourselves about what we knew when we were born. We knew when to eat, how much to eat. You can't make a baby overeat. They purse their lips and they don't eat anymore. And kids, that you can't make them eat things that they don't want to have. So we need to get back to how to really focus in on our bodies, and that is through intuitive eating. So what can you start doing differently? First is you're coming here. So you're making yourself a priority, and making yourself a priority in terms of, what is it I need? I think of food as it's supposed to be nourishment. What we've ended up doing is using food as a way of nurturing ourselves, because we don't know how to make ourselves a priority, and mind, body, spirit. How do I really nurture myself? And so what you can do differently is start looking at, how do I make myself a priority? Another thing you can do is stop trying to do the same old things and expect to get different results. I used to do, I swear, I did this. I did the same diet over and over again, the same one, expecting different results, and never got a different result. The result was always the same, but I did the same thing over and over again. The same thing with getting on the scale. I would get on the scale over and over again, expecting to feel good at the end, expecting to feel good when I got off, and I never did. So, are you doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result? Now's the time to start making yourself a priority and looking at, what am I doing repetitively that is leading me back into the same trap of that diet mindset, of that diet behavior? And what else you can do is get off the diet cycle. I think this is the time you're here. This is the time to start recognizing, when am I on that diet cycle? And how can I start jumping off? How can I start jumping off? And the starting point always is recognizing it. Always it's recognizing it. So what can you do? First is learn how to approach food in a whole new way, and not and leave dieting away. The dieting always leads to that dieting cycle. Diet, binge, guilt, diet, binge, guilt. It keeps going round and around. So the starting point, actually the scary point, is to go, oh, diets don't work. Diets haven't worked for me. I want to stop that. The second thing is to determine how your emotions are affecting your eating choices and what you can do about it. This is what we're going to talk about tomorrow in our second day, is emotions and how they lead us to overeat. There are, once again, I talked about nourish your body with food, nourish your body, nurture yourself in other ways. And nurturing has to do with, how do I not manage, how do I recognize my feelings and what do I do about them? What do I do? And this is where we, in my Emotional Eating Solutions program, we start making a wellness plan of when these certain feelings come up. This is interesting. Today was a day for me where I felt off because the electricity went out. I didn't know what to do. It was right before I was supposed to come on live for Food Freedom Live Masterclass. Well, it was not live. And I used my tools. I used my tools because I felt out of balance because of it. I recognized it. I did things to help take care of myself. And as I walked through it, I had to calm myself down, calm my emotions, so that I could be present with you now. So that was where my wellness plan came into being, is I was able to recognize the feelings of frustration and overwhelm and fear. And then the more I could recognize it, the more I could figure out what to do about it, what I could do about it. Another thing to do is get those pesky thoughts that lead you to overeat out of your head. This is one of the biggest projects, the biggest things that happen, is there are these thoughts, these saboteur thoughts that really get us into that restrict, binge, guilt, restrict, binge, guilt cycle around and around. It's important to start recognizing them. It's important to notice when your head is going into these places of thinking yourself in a hole and thinking yourself into overeating. I remember I used to have this experience. It happened very often, is that I would have this food in front of me and my head kept saying, you're just going to eat it. You're just going to eat it. Just go ahead and eat it. You're going to do it anyway. Just go ahead and do it. And I would, because I had these thoughts that I didn't know what to do with. That was powerful. It's powerful to me to this day to continually be vigilant about what are the thoughts coming up in my head. Once again, when the electricity went out earlier in the day, there were thoughts also, oh, nobody's going to like me. Nobody's going to like what I'm doing. I can't get this done. And I had to literally take a deep breath and go, Kim, We got this. We can do this because I now know how to calm those thoughts and not let them run rampant. The other thing is get clear on why you overeat and determine what you can do differently. This is so individual. What is it that leads you to overeat is probably different than what leads me or anybody else. Becoming clearer on what leads you to overeat is super important, and it's very personal. It's very personal. I've had people tell me stories of family stories of this is what my family did, or this is what they do individually, or um, when these certain things happen, they overeat. And that can be so empowering to start recognizing that pattern, start recognizing the pattern that's going on. You're going to get to look at how the diet. So what we're talking about is how the diet mindset sets you up to fail. And what I wanted to bring up is that in Emotional Eating Solutions, which is my 8-week self-study course, there are 6 components. And whether or not you join us in Emotional Eating Solutions, I want to talk to you about what the components are, because this is how you get food freedom. Whether you decide to work with me and have me help you with it, or you want to do it on your own, these are components that are critical to having food freedom. The first one is the physical, and this is what we're talking about today, is the diet mindset and how that dieting thought keeps you stuck in a certain pattern of eating. Also, the physical, which we have not gone into today, which is in Emotional Eating Solutions, is how to get in touch with your body, how to get in touch with your hunger and your fullness, and then also in touch with what is my right food. We don't have any, you can have this or you can't. We don't have off limit foods, but there's foods that you're right food. And it takes not work, but it takes some determination and some thought to figure out what that is for you. And that is really important. And that is part of the physical. The emotional, what we're going to talk about tomorrow in our Food Freedom Live Masterclass, is getting in touch with those emotions. What are the emotions that lead you to overeat or lead you to feel out of control? I talked about today, I felt frustrated, overwhelmed, and I had to check myself and I had to recognize those feelings and deal with it as the power went out. So emotional is so important. And I find it's actually a day-to-day situation where I am recognizing my emotions and figuring out what I need based on the emotions. The third thing that's part of having food freedom is recognizing your thoughts. We talked about this a little bit earlier in terms of the diet thoughts, the dieting thoughts, but also there are lots of other thoughts that we have that get us in conflict. And it's not just about the food. It's what I say is it's about the food, but it's not about the food, because it goes much bigger than the food. And it's all the thoughts that you have that lead you to not feel good about yourself. The fourth area you want to look at is what we call lifestyle and social component. And that is movement. We don't call it exercise. We call it movement. It is work. It's family. It's holidays. It's vacations, all the things that are part of this social aspect that we do, and how that can lead us astray, or how we might act in certain ways based on food or food situations. Obviously, Christmas is a whole thing in and of itself about how to look at food in a different way, because Christmas can be wrapped up, or holidays can be wrapped up in the holiday and family and memories and who's around and who's not around. Lots of things that go on around that. And so lifestyle, the social component, is very, very, very important. Another thing that you'd want to look at, whether you work with me in Emotional Eating Solutions or not, is mindfulness. And this is on day 3 of our Food Freedom Live Masterclass. We're going to talk more about mindfulness, and that's really how to become more centered. Remember, I talked about the physical component is how to recognize internally whether you're hungry or full. Because I promise, if you've been on diets, you've lost that opportunity to recognize when you're hungry and full and what's your rightful food. Mindfulness gets you back in touch with your body in a way that helps you with food, but it helps you with everything even greater than what you'll need it for food. Mindfulness is super important. And last but not least is really learning how to engage in self-love, learning how to love yourself no matter what you've eaten, no matter what your body looks like, to really love your body without shaming yourself for what your body looks like or how big you are or how small you are or how much you've gained or lost. It's really about, how do I start recognizing myself? This is so important. I say it all the time that really this should be number one, but people want to hear about the physical. So we start with the physical, but the self-love is so important because that is really about how you treat yourself and how you feel about yourself. So these last sentences are super important, is that the problem with food has been there for a long time, generally since childhood, and will not just go away on its own, and diets make it worse. You got to have a plan to address all the 6 components and how they interact with each other. I just was writing a newsletter the other day, and I was thinking back on all the people I've talked to that they have been dieting, binging, feeling bad about themselves for at least 10 years. And I think about, like, do you want 10 more years like that? Or do you want to start making it different? Because generally what we'll say is that I just want it done. I want to be over with this. Well, it's taken 10 plus years to get here. It's going to take a little bit to move it on. And I've just given you an outline of what you can do. Another thing you can do is you can join us in Emotional Eating Solutions. Here's what one participant had to say, is they said, I have noticed a lot of subtle changes. My body image has completely shifted. I was looking in the mirror this morning and I didn't love what I saw, but I didn't hate and despise what I saw. And funny, just the thought this morning, wow, did this happen? How did this happen? And that I could look at myself in the mirror without shame and disgust. This is so typical of what I hear, is that we literally have to move out of this thought and feeling of hate and disgust and despise. I can't tell you how many people tell me they hate their bodies, they hate themselves because of how they look. And I want you to feel that self-love, that 6th component, because you are precious and deserve to treat yourself better. So what I want to offer to you, and I want you to really think about it, is that we have Emotional Eating Solutions, a self-week or an 8-week self-study program. And it's 8 weeks of video recordings in our members only portal where you get to have time. They're snippets. They're like anywhere up, the most they're 10 minutes long. And so you get to go through them at your pace in a way that fits for you. And then I have assignments for you that are not complicated, but what we want is for you to have some direction about how you can do things differently so you can practice what we learn. Also, the other good thing that we have is we have a monthly group coaching call with me, and in June it'll be towards the end of the month. I'll have to get that free tomorrow so you'll know what date it is. We do a monthly coaching call where you can ask your question in advance. You can ask it on the call. And that is very, very valuable. It's an hour with me. I don't give that for group coaching other than in this group. The other bonus you get is an in-depth wellness plan where you figure out how to keep yourself on track over the long haul, well past the time that the program is over. And what's nice about this program is at this point in time, you have access to the program until the program goes away. So I give you lifetime access until the program's gone. So you can come to the group coaching call every month. After you finish the course, you can still stay on the group coaching call because I think there's always a need for more. And the new thing that I'm offering that we have is we're putting a playbook in the portal. So you'll have a playbook of all the things you need to do to have your success, to have that food freedom, to have that solution that you're looking for. I hope you think about joining us. The value is huge, 1,200. There's a lot in there. I got to say, there's a lot of group coaching from, I think it's over a year, 2 years worth. And it's in there. You can have access to what we've talked about before. Right now, it is only $297. That is it. It's very, very affordable. It's less than it would cost to spend an hour with me, and you get an hour with me once a month. It's less than an hour with me. And the price is going up at the end of, or at the beginning of next month. I'm increasing the price because we're adding new things in the program all the time. The new playbook we're putting in makes it really valuable. It's at feedyoursoulunlimited.com in the Emotional Eating Solutions self-study area. I'm going to put a link in our email, but I encourage you to look at it. I encourage you to join us. And I encourage you to come back tomorrow. I know that you could be spending your time in lots of other places. Today was a little bit of a different juggle. So we're not live. We will be live tomorrow. And I really appreciate you being here and being part of this community. I would love to hear what you have as a takeaway. What are your takeaways from today? You can email me at info@feedyoursoulunlimited.com. I'll have that in the email also. So you can do that. Thank you. Let me stop my sharing. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you. I hope you got a lot out of today. We covered a lot, and there is still more to come. Tomorrow, you got to join us because we're going to be talking about emotions and how those lead us to overeat. And it's a really important topic. So I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.